Canada spared the political and market reaction to Liberation Day. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's the day the world was waiting for with dread. Donald Trump's Liberation Day, and the American president lived up to his promise of imposing reciprocal tariffs on countries all over the world. But Canada seems to have been spared the worst of it. Canada is not getting hit with the so-called baseline tariff of 10% or with any more country-specific tariffs. But that doesn't mean we're off the hook. There are still tariffs on steel and aluminum, automobiles and auto parts, energy and potash. During his Rose Garden event yesterday at the White House, Donald Trump claimed other countries, friend and foe alike, had been ripping off the United States for years, and he cited Canada's supply management system in the dairy sector as an example.
You're going to be very happy very soon, and you probably see what's happening with all of the, not only car companies, but car companies in particular. You see it with all of the ones they're moving, they're announcing day in, day out. You're seeing it. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. With today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers who are brutalized by nations all over the world. Brutalized. Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. They do the first can of milk. They do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. So when they're figuring what's Canada charging, they say, oh, about 2%, 3%. But take a look at what happens down the road. When you look a little bit, it's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country.
It's been immediate impact on Canadian industry. Stellantis says it's idling its plant in Windsor because of the tariffs. The shutdown there will last 2 weeks. And the tariff news is having an impact on our politics as it is happening during a federal election campaign. Speaking right now, Prime Minister and Liberal leader Mark Carney said the Trump measures will rupture the global economy.
The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over.
As for what his government plans to do, among the measures specifically having to do with the auto sector, Carney said Canada will match the U.S. approach.
With 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement. And on the non-Canadian content of CUSMA-compliant vehicles from the United States as well. Our tariffs, though, unlike the U.S. tariffs, will not affect auto parts because we know the benefits of our integrated production system. And they will also not affect vehicle content from Mexico, who is respecting the CUSMA agreement. And as well, we are developing a framework for auto producers in Canada to get relief from these counter tariffs as long as they maintain their production and investment in our country.
Also speaking in Ottawa today, the leader of Canada's New Democrats, Jagmeet Singh, he was asked about retaliatory tariffs for the auto sector and was also asked if Mark Carney deserves any credit for the Liberation Day tariffs not being as bad as some feared, because Carney had a phone call with Donald Trump last week.
I've long maintained the position that we need to retaliate dollar for dollar. If we're being attacked, we need to fight back. We also know that these tariffs are going to hurt Americans, and we've said that from the beginning. We're already seeing that Donald Trump's approach is like an arsonist who's setting fire not to just our economy, but his own economy as well. But we need to show that we're ready to fight back and defend our country.
And just as a follow-up, do you think that Mark Carney deserves any credit for Canada being exempt from the 10% baseline tariff that Trump announced yesterday?
I don't think there's anything that Mark Carney did specifically to result in that. But again, when it comes to our fight against Donald Trump, I'm on Team Canada. I want us to win. I want us to do well. And I think that we're up against a very volatile, unpredictable Donald Trump. And I don't know if there's anything that we've done that has caused this outcome, but we got to stay strong and fight back.
The Conservative campaign is in Kingston for the second day in a row, Kingston, Ontario. Pierre Poilievre attracted another big crowd at one of his rallies last night. Some say more than 4,000 supporters were there. The Kingston Police Department issued a traffic bulletin. At a follow-up event this morning at a local factory, Poilievre called Trump's decision to impose more tariffs madness.
It's clear that tariffs must end. It's clear that Canadians must stand together. And I'm here to reassure Canadians that united, we will get through this together. We will strengthen our country and stand up for our workers. First and foremost, we must support workers and their families. So to the hardworking Canadians and businesses directly hit by these unjustified tariffs, I say, your concerns are my concern today. We are here for you. A new Conservative government will make it a priority to keep industry moving and workers working. We know that once the link between worker and job is broken, it can take months or years to rebuild it. That's why it is much more economically affordable and much more important from the well-being of a family to keep the job in place.
The financial markets do not like tariffs, and all the major stock indices are deep in the red right now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, for example, is down 1,286 points right now. That's a loss of 3% on the day. The tech-heavy NASDAQ is currently off about 5%. It's down more than 800 points. The S&P 500 is down more than 200 points. The Toronto main stock index, the TSX, is down 777 points right now. That's a loss of 3% on the day. The Canadian dollar, though, is actually trading higher by about 1.5%. It's at 71.10 cents US. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube back with us this week, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Let's talk about the election campaign. Many political commentators are describing a conservative election campaign in disarray. It's not focused on the right messages. It is headed for certain defeat. They point to the Liberal Party's lead in Atlantic Canada, Quebec, Ontario, and they're suggesting that this election campaign is over. A conservative comeback, unlikely. What do you think of this analysis, and what hope do you have that the Conservatives can still win the election?
Well, I've actually written a column on it, which is forthcoming, so I'm not going to spoil everything that I've said for obvious reasons, but I can say to you that diagnosis or analysis, if you wish, is not accurate. And the reason is not only because there's plenty of days left in the campaign. Remember, the shift between the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party in terms of who was leading in the polls, if you want to put a lot of stock and faith in them, changed in about a 3 to 4 week period just simply due to Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, because the tariff war is at least, if nothing else, under the radar for the next little while, doesn't mean it's over, doesn't mean it's gone. As long as Trump is president, obviously it can resurface at any moment. But right now, it's pretty much settled and resolved based on what was announced yesterday by the U.S. president, in which there were no new tariffs basically put on us, other than the things that apply to the auto sector, but we knew those were forthcoming. It has now created a new scenario, which, quite frankly, the voters have probably not given a lot of consideration to just yet. The polling companies have not necessarily factored into anything as of yet because it's just so new and so fresh. I still thought there was plenty of time for a variety of reasons, which we can go through. But this new development, more than anything, unless Canadian voters are just living under a rock and claim that they've decided already, which wouldn't make a lot of sense because a large chunk of the electorate moved so quickly just simply because Justin Trudeau left politics, because Donald Trump's tariffs, took over the front pages of every newspaper, every TV show, every radio program like yours. That's not enough to state that they're all firmly ensconced in the Liberal camp. They may not have even been firmly ensconced in the Conservative camp to begin with, just due to frustration or just sheer hatred of the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. It means they can be swayed. It means they can be moved. It may not happen, but it's certainly there, and the likelihood is much stronger today than it even was just a short while ago.
But you think the tariff news, in the fact that it's not as bad as some people feared,
right,
may swing the pendulum back to the Conservatives? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yes, because remember,
Yes.
that's what the Liberals made this election about. Remember how people were critical, and I talked about this.
They're still making
when
it
Ontario
about that.
Pre-C Premier Doug Ford did the same thing. Oh, God, but no, there's so many things to discuss in Ontario. Well, guess what the main factor was? It was tariffs. Well, that's what Mark Carney and the Liberals are counting on. So the new Prime Minister, or newish, I guess we can say now, Prime Minister, was banking on that. And if you saw his face and his reaction, if you know anything about body language, he was completely shell-shocked yesterday, looking at his feet when he spoke to reporters, because he realized that the main reason why his party has grown and why he has grown to some extent in the polls is now largely gone. Changes everything.
Really? Okay. I want to ask you as well, what do you make of these crowds at Pierre Poilievre's rally? Not just that, while I was scrolling through because I wanted to see what kind of turnout there was in Kingston, I would note there were, when I looked at some of the videos, Pierre Poilievre's account, for example, was live streaming this on X. 52,000 people were watching.
Yeah.
52,000 people were watching a Pierre Poilievre rally. Doesn't mean they're all supporters. Doesn't mean they all liked what he had to say or whatever, but that's... They're watching a political rally of a Conservative leader in Kingston, Ontario. I found that kind of remarkable, but in a minute or less, just on that.
Sure, it is remarkable in that sense, but it's even remarkable that 52,000 people are watching a political rally of any sort, no matter who the leader was or who was actually speaking. It means not just that the Conservative base is engaged. We know that. It means that there's a large chunk of the electorate who, may be in one camp or the other, whichever it may be, because we can largely say this is now a two-party race. It isn't multi-party. The NDP is getting clobbered. The Bloc is obviously doing well in Quebec, but they're isolated. The Green Party is going to be almost wiped out. All that's left really are the Liberals and the Conservatives. And for this reason, a lot of people are still looking around, considering ideas, and possibly hedging their bets. So anyone who's sitting around thinking, oh, well, the trend is showing this, the Liberals are not that high or far ahead. If you do the cumulative average of polling numbers in my forthcoming column, it's only 5 to 6 points. That's not a big lead. This sort of rally that we saw in Kingston, I think there were over 5,000 people also who showed up at it. This shows that a lot of people are interested, not just the Conservative base, not just red meat conservatives, Canadians in general. So anyone who thinks this election is over is dreaming.
All right, when we come back, Western separation and what I thought was a very stunning column from the founder of the Reform Party, Preston Manning, in the Globe and Mail yesterday. I'm sure you've read it, and I want your take on what he is saying about what's on the line. He says national unity is on the line in this election.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here was syndicated columnist Michael Taube. I would like your take on a column that was in the Globe and Mail from the founder of the Reform Party, Preston Manning. I'll read a little bit. Whether politicians, the media, or voters in central Canada realize it or not, the greatest future threat to national unity is emerging not from Quebec, but on the Western Front. On account of the mismanagement of national affairs for the last decade by the Liberal government and its consistent failure to address those issues of greatest concern to Western Canadians, large numbers of Westerners will simply not stand for another 4 years of Liberal government, no matter who leads it. Voters, particularly in Atlantic Canada, need to recognize that a vote for the Carney Liberals is a vote for Western secession, a vote for the breakup of Canada as we know it. How seriously do you think we should take that?
It's one of those things, and a number of conservatives have come out and sort of made comments that are, either controversial or contrary to what the message should be politically. It doesn't mean that people don't have opinions and can't express them, but just sometimes it's like two rams hitting each other, but it's coming from the same side, and it's not beneficial to the party at hand. I mean, every political party has this. I wish Preston Manning had not said this, but he has the right to say it, and he's been writing for the Globe and Mail for many, many years. Does he have a valid point? Certainly. I think that a lot of Western premiers are going to be very frustrated if the Liberals get back into power and another, let's say, even if not 4 years, but another 1 to 2 years of this. My old friend Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has sort of insinuated that she doesn't want Alberta, just money being plundered from her as well, and she'd be very frustrated with it. There is certainly been a lot of interest in, if not Western succession, independence, if you'd like. It's been a small movement at times, bigger at other points. You can look through history.
Well, he says it will grow unabated if the Liberals win the election. It will grow unabated.
But it's been there. Well, but it has been there. Like I was just going to say, the Western Canada Concept Party, Alberta Independence Party. There are various outfits out there that have always supported. To say that it's going to grow unabated, I don't know if I would go that far. I think that certainly a lot of them would be very frustrated, and they would be furious that if you look at some of the battleground states, which is, Atlantic region, Quebec and Ontario, which some have suggested is going heavily right now for Carney and the Liberals, although it's the caveat, as I was saying, Trump's announcement yesterday may switch all this, but let's just say hypothetically it still remains the same. That would be obviously a big problem for the Western provinces like Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, etc. And It would also mean that many of them would get very angry with the way the situation is. Do I think it's going to happen the way Manning's saying? No. But do I think that feeling exists? Yes. And it is obviously problematic.
Okay. Hey, great to hear from you today. Such a busy day and such a compelling election campaign. Who knows what it'll look like next week, Michael? I can't wait to hear from you again. Thank you.
My pleasure, and God knows what it'll look like next week. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye. That's Michael Taube, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Coming up, it's our Newsday panel. With Trump looming large, Liberation Day impacting the campaign again today. We'll cover it all with our pundits. Coming right up on News Radio.
No question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio, the Newsday panel.
Let's jump right into it. Ariella Kimmel is back with us, the president of Winston-Wilmot. How are you today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Great to hear from you today, Ariella. Alex Creston's back with us. He's vice president at Crestview Strategies. Hello, Alex.
How are you?
I'm good. Great to hear from you. Well, it seems as though Canada has been spared the worst of Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. What does it all mean, though, in the context of our election campaign? All of this tariff drama, who is it helping and who is it hurting? Ariella, what would you say?
I mean, I think that the campaign can't solely be focused on Trump this whole time. As, Pierre has been out saying, this is an important issue, but we do have other serious issues facing the country: housing, affordability, public safety. And I do think that, the amount of time that Carney does get to be on the podium looking like a prime minister does help him. But at the end of the day, he has to be back on the campaign trail and selling Canadians on why he should be prime minister. Well, Pierre is out trying to do the same thing. And yesterday he spoke to a room on Bay Street and he looked and sounded like a prime minister. So I think they're both kind of ramping up that visual. And so honestly, I'm not really certain at this point who it's going to help the most, because I think they're both talking very similarly about what they want to happen.
Okay. Alex, what would you say, Alex?
Yeah, look, I think that Donald Trump has been sort of directing our politics for the last number of months. He has, been the center of the Canadian election so far. Look, there are still some very serious tariffs that are going to be affecting Canadian auto workers, steel workers, and folks in the aluminum industry, and those can't be discounted. But the fact that that for now it seems Canada is not subject to the retaliatory list that he put out, or sorry, the whatever the list was he put out yesterday, liberation list he put out yesterday, means that maybe we will be able to adjust our election and talk a little bit more about the important domestic issues that are at stake. And the question is really, if Mark Carney so far has been a single issue candidate in this election, I would think that he's going to be interested in trying to keep Donald Trump front and center of Canadian politics for as long as he can.
Okay. Based on what you've heard in recent days, and given all the news reports about dissatisfied conservative strategists saying Poilievre has too many messages, that he should be more focused on Donald Trump. I think back to the rally in Surrey last week when it took him 30 minutes to even mention Donald Trump's name. Ariella, you mentioned the event in Toronto yesterday, campaign rally last night in Kingston, right off the top mentioning Donald Trump. Has there been a Poilievre pivot? Would you say he has now pivoted and now the Trump threat is more upfront in his campaign messaging? What would you say, Ariella?
I mean, I think Pierre put it very correctly yesterday when he was in his speech. He said that he's not going to stop talking about the issues that Canadians are dealing with and that, are impacted impacting them in addition to the tariffs. And I do think he has stepped up his rhetoric against Trump in the last few days, but that's also as we've seen quote unquote Liberation Day happen and the aftermath of it. So I do think he is talking about what we were talking about before Trump and what hasn't changed, which is what's happened in the last 10 years in this country, what are people dealing with, and what are people struggling with, and how he's going to respond to that. And I do think that, when we break through the mold and beyond this, it's Trump's going to be there for 4 years. Maybe this will continue to impact for 4 years, and it will be very detrimental, as we know. It's going to change the global economy, and we're already going to see stock markets take a dive. But what is the response going to be? And the real response beyond retaliatory tariffs, what is the plan to shore up our economy and ensure that we're in a better place?
Okay. Alex, do you think Pierre Poilievre has now made the Donald Trump issue more of a focus than he had been up until this point of the campaign in recent days? Has he has he kind of taken that under advisement and made it a more prominent part of his campaign?
I don't see how in this, in the last couple of days you would talk about anything else. It's front and center. But I would say that all of the pessimism that I've seen reported on towards the end of last week is pretty ridiculous. You don't go sort of, if you're tied after the first period, you don't pack it in and go home. There's a lot of election to go here. And like Ariella was saying, people are all of the concerns and the economic impacts of the last 10 years of liberal mismanagement are still in place. And the people who are impacted by them still care about those things. So, so to abandon those issues to focus solely on Donald Trump would only feed into Donald Trump and his ego.
Okay, very interesting. All right, when we come back, I mean, some pundits are talking like it's over. Stick a fork in the conservatives. They're done, cooked, toast. I'll run that by you. Find out what you think. I mean, some political pundits are talking like this election campaign is over. I was listening to someone yesterday, a veteran of many liberal campaigns, who I think is rather politically agnostic right now. I mean, suggesting that this is not a close election anymore. It's not a close election campaign anymore. They're suggesting that the Liberal lead, because of its strength in Ontario and Quebec, will make it impossible for the Conservatives to mount a comeback, and that it's over. It's effectively over here on April 3rd. Ariella, what do you think?
I don't think it's over till the polls close on April 28th. Candidates should be out working hard, knocking doors, pulling their supporter. And that's what matters now. We're 25 more days away. A lot can happen in that time. And frankly, we've seen blunder after blunder on the campaign trail from Carney. And so what happens in the next 3 weeks can make a difference on whether people even actually go out and vote or stay home. He's now going to have to get back on the campaign trail, which tonight actually includes a 2-hour special with Radio Canada, which is a kind of French televised sort of editorial board. And we all know his French is. And I just think that people are deciding things too far out at this point.
Okay. Premature. What do you think, Alex?
I think what's happening here is that we have, as we all know, because of the sort of fractured media culture, and different Canadians have very different views of this election. So if you are a Canadian who is 55 plus and consumes mainstream English language media in Canada, you have a view of this election being about, Mark Carney, the new, white knight coming to save us from Donald Trump.
The steady hand in the Trump turbulence, right?
The serious businessman, right? And then you have, but if you are younger and don't consume mainstream media and are less established in your sort of financial life, or you are someone who consumes maybe a foreign language media primarily, you're not subject to that same influence. So you have a different view of the election, which is less changed from where we were post Trudeau's resignation. So I think that's the cause of this sort of thinking that, it's all over. But again, like I said before, the game is tied. We're just finished the first period. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of hockey to play.
All right, like the hockey analogy, I would like to pick your brain on that, Ariella. What do you think about this? This is not the first time I've heard this, that you have an older generation still, consuming, say, traditional media, reading the broadsheets, the daily newspapers, and watching the supper hour news, tuning into the national or the CTV national news or whatever national newscast they consume. There's that, but then there's a whole other media ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, alternative media, independent media, ethnic media, podcasters, YouTubers, TikTokers, all of this stuff.
There's everything.
Yeah. Do you think that could, the alternative / what I would call independent media, is that a force in this campaign, do you think? Could it be a force in this campaign?
I think it's for sure a force in this campaign. And I think, you've seen that in general, like younger generations don't have the same trust in media as, the older generations, and especially those over 50. And so I do think a lot of them are also consuming news on their social media pages, through Facebook, through Instagram, through TikTok, through Twitter, through all of it, or X, through all of it. And so it's they're seeing a different narrative than like the normal, few hundred word columns that are in newspapers or the short little hit that's on, CTV News night at 6. And so, my parents are those people. They every night watch the 6 p.m. news, and, that's a lot of where they're consuming it from. But more often I'm getting things from them that they see on Facebook, right? So it is definitely social media will continue to play a role and is playing a big role for people.
Alex, what do you think about the crowds at the rallies? Do they mean anything? 5,000 people in Kingston or whatever it was last night. Does that mean anything?
It doesn't mean nothing. Look, I've been going to Conservative Party rallies of some kind or another since I was 17 years old in the GTA. And you know what? You can guarantee that you see about the same 50 to 100 people at every one. And the beginning of the campaign, I brought my kids out to one, and there were hundreds of people, the vast majority of whom I've never seen in my life, who are excited and interested and engaged. And, with the exuberance of people, going to a Jays game or lining up to go to a rock concert. There are people who are excited and engaged about politics who never have been before, and that can't be discounted.
Ariella, what do you make of the crowds at the Poilievre rallies?
I think Pierce pulling thousands in PEI, thousands in Fredericton, thousands in Kingston, all these liberal strongholds. So something's not computing here. And, as I said, older adults, especially those who are 50, are also more likely to answer polls than younger people who are often harder to reach. I don't answer my phone ever unless I know the number. So it's definitely skewing results. And I do think one point is blue collar workers on construction sites aren't picking up their phones in the middle of the day to respond to Nano's polls, but we're seeing something that not a lot of people are talking about, which is amazing, is private sector unions for the first time are going out and endorsing Pierre, from LaUNA to the pipe traders to the Boilermakers. They're standing up at his rallies and endorsing him, or they're putting out social media, letters on social media. And they're saying things like Pierre's commitment to Canada goes beyond our natural resources. He's committed to protecting Canadian workers. And I do think that these types of endorsements does have a huge impact on their members and what they're seeing.
I wonder if Monty McNaughton is actually playing a role in that. The former Labour minister in Ontario, who was so good at that for Doug Ford, Monty was kind of called the union whisperer. I wonder if maybe he has a hand in that. I'm not sure if he does. Maybe something to pick up on. What's that? Sorry?
I worked for Monty before he stepped out of politics. So I'd say, knowing Monty, he's definitely, out there. I've seen him post on social media that he's attending Pierre's rallies with his friends from the different labor unions. And, he wrote the book on this in a lot of ways. And it's so it is simply that, Pierre and Monty and Ford and others who are getting these endorsements for the first time are sitting down and listening, and they're tailoring their policies to those people.
All right, we'll be right back. Ariella Kimmel's with us, Alex Creston here. It's our Newsday panel. So they made the decision, the debate commission, the PPC's not in, the Greens are. However, the Jonathan Pedno, I guess, is going to be the leader representing the Greens in the leaders' debates. But what do you think of even the decision to allow the Greens to be allowed to participate in the leaders' debates? Is it something you agree with? Good decision, bad decision? Alex, what do you think?
I understand how they came to the decision. I understand that this is that we base it on the party. If it has seats in the House, then we invite them. This is a serious debate. Only serious contenders for prime minister should be there. That's it.
Okay. So you're a no, right?
I'm a no. It's a no.
You're a no.
It's no
yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, no for you. Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't let the PPC or the Green leaders there sing. Sure, millions of people are going to vote for the NDP. You have to have sing there. But what do you think, Ariella?
That is also a no for me. This party, they're polling at 2.4% right now. And, as Alex said, this is a serious debate with serious contenders. Putting Jonathan in or May in doesn't, it takes away from the reality that this is about who's going to lead our country, and it's definitely not going to be them. I mean, frankly, with the way that Jagmeet's polling, it's also not obviously going to be him, but I do think, he has seats in the House and he is a legitimate party at this point, so it makes sense.
Right. Okay. Great to hear from both of you. All the best. We'll see what the campaign looks like next week when we all speak again. All the best to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's Ariella Kimmel, president at Winston Wilmot. Alex Creston is vice president at Crestview Strategy. Talkback is just ahead, and we're election focused with, the side helping of Donald Trump and tariffs and Liberation Day, reciprocal tariffs. And we have a very kind of basic question that we want to ask you today. You might want to give this some thought and give us a call now at 1-833-668-2577. Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? And should the next Prime Minister of Canada do a deal with Donald Trump when he isn't honoring the agreement that he signed just 6 years ago? Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Talk back right after the news.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Well, today's topics: the election, Trump, tariffs, and Liberation Day. Liberation Day, and what the next Canadian Prime Minister should do. Here's the main question for today's Talkback, everyone. Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? If you were the Prime Minister, would you do a deal with Donald Trump? We are in an election campaign. One party's going to win. Someone's going to be the Prime Minister after all is said and done. Should that person be doing any kind of deal with Donald Trump, who has been the President of the United States again for, I would remind you, just 73 days. I know it must seem longer for a lot of you. While Canada may have been spared the worst of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, the new round of tariffs on our exports, there are tariffs that are still in place. Tariffs that will cause damage to our economy. One of the big news stories today is the Stellantis operation in Windsor closing down for 2 weeks because of tariffs. Uncertainty about tariffs. 4,000 people work at that place. 4,000 people. Canada had a free trade agreement with Donald Trump. He signed it. He signed it 6 years ago. CUSMA, or what the Americans call USMCA. And this is what Donald Trump said 6 years ago at the signing ceremony, when he was celebrating this free trade deal that he signed, along with Prime Minister Trudeau and the Mexican president at the time, Enrique Peña Nieto. Let's listen to this.
In short, this is a model agreement that changes the trade landscape forever. And this is an agreement that, first and foremost, benefits working people, something of great importance to all three of us here today. President, I must say, Peña Nieto and Prime Minister Trudeau, we've worked hard on this agreement. It's been long and hard. We've taken a lot of barbs and a little abuse, and we got there. It's great for all of our countries. Thank you for your close partnership throughout this process. This new agreement will ensure a future of prosperity and innovation for Mexico, Canada, and the United States.
I mean, that was 6 years ago at the signing ceremony. Great deal. He signed. It's going to be great for workers, great for prosperity for all three countries. And yet, if you fast forward to yesterday and this Liberation Day event at the Rose Garden in the White House, he talked a little bit about Canada. Let's listen here.
You're going to be very happy very soon, and you probably see what's happening with all of the not only car companies, but car companies in particular. You see it with all of the ones they're moving, they're announcing day in, day out. You're seeing it. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. With today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers who are brutalized by nations all over the world. Brutalized. Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. They do the first can of milk. They do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. So when they're figuring what's Canada charging, they say, oh, about 2%, 3%. But take a look at what happens down the road. When you look a little bit, it's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country.
6 years later, that's Donald Trump. Brutalized. That's the kind of language he's using. Brutalized. But nevertheless, it was part of the agreement that he was so proud to sign 6 years ago. And now we're just one of many countries in the world that has been brutalizing the United States. We've been brutalizing the United States. Tariffs on steel, tariffs on aluminum, vehicles and vehicle parts, tariffs on air, tariffs on potash. All from a U.S. president who we thought, I guess, was signing a deal in good faith with Canada 6 years ago. And all of this happening while we have an election campaign going on. And someone is going to be the prime minister after the election is over. Maybe it's Mark Carney, maybe it's Pierre Poilievre. And they've both said they'll negotiate with Donald Trump. They have also both said some things are non-negotiable. But should they be signing a deal with the United States at all if Trump is the president, given that he refuses to honor the last trade agreement? Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Would you even buy a used car from the man? Look, we could start with that question. We'll see what the day brings. I have some other questions that I wouldn't mind running by you, getting your thoughts on, but we can start with that one for now and see what the uptake is. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Would you do a deal with Donald Trump, given his record? Should the next Canadian Prime Minister do a deal with Donald Trump? What would you say? Would you say, no, Donald Trump reneged on the agreement he signed 6 years ago? He's proven he can't be trusted, and he won't keep up his end of the bargain. Or would you say, yes, because we have no choice? The United States is a $27 trillion economy right next door. There is no other market that can provide the same bang for the buck for Canada as the American market can. And we need access to that market, preferably tariff-free access. So we have to sign a deal. No choice. I'd love to know your take. As a Canadian, would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Yes or no? 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? And what do you think about the next Canadian Prime Minister trying to reach another trade agreement with Donald Trump? Do you think that's good or bad? Would you say the next Canadian Prime Minister should not do a deal with Donald Trump? He's proven he will not live up to the terms of a deal because there was a free trade agreement in place, signed 6 years ago, signed by him at a signing ceremony. Prime Minister Trudeau on one side, the Mexican president on the other, and he's singing its praises. Or would you say we're Canada, we're a tenth of the size, we really don't have much choice. The United States is the most important economy in the world. It's right next door. And it's best for the Canadian economy. It's best for Canada to have open access to that market. I'd love to know your opinion on this issue today. I mean, this Trump tariff Liberation Day story is the biggest story in the world. So share your thoughts, please. 1-833 668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. We have some lines available. The wait won't be too long at all. Let's go to Kim, who's up first today in Calgary. Hello, Kim.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Kim. How are you today?
Okay. Good. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
This guy, Trump, cannot be trusted at all. I don't think any deal that is made with him will be fulfilled. Previously, when he was in term, I think he was a newbie. He was just trying to be a president. This time, he's doing things for himself and Musk and his family. He's setting things up for himself. What's going to happen is, if he's ruining the world economy, he's going to be ruining the U.S. economy as well. He's only been in power for 73 days. It's going to take time for their economy, U.S. economy, to feel the wrath of what he's doing. And I personally feel we should hold tight and wait and see what happens. And also, our previous Prime Minister, Trudeau, has made enemies with all the other countries in the world. Our Prime Minister should be making friends with Europe, with China, India, and start doing, look elsewhere, do business elsewhere for a change,
do business
for a while.
Elsewhere.
And teach this guy a lesson. That's the only way you're going to teach him a lesson. He needs to be taught a lesson.
So when you say, I'm curious,
revolves around him.
Sure. I'm curious, when you say wait and see what happens, do you mean wait and see how the Americans react to these tariffs and say stock market declines and higher fuel prices, higher prices when they go shopping at Walmart or whatever the case might be?
Yeah, because the thing is, it's too early for them to feel the
effect,
effect. Sorry, thanks. Of what he's doing. Wait and see. They're going to feel it way more than everybody else. And once they do, things will change. This guy will be gone faster than you know it.
He'll be gone. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Okay. Thank you, Kim. You've got us off to a great start today on Talkback. In Cochrane, Ken, you're up next. Do a deal with Donald Trump, Ken? Would you do a deal with Donald Trump?
Well, I think we have to.
Okay.
You're saying that, that he's broken the deal. He has broken the deal, but only in 3 or 4 different sectors of that whole agreement, right? So steel, aluminum, probably the supply chain management, dairy product stuff, I would imagine is part of this. And the auto sector, and we're not certain exactly how the auto sector portion is actually going to kind of come out in the end. So most of what it is that we're selling to the U.S. is still tariff-free, as far as we've been told at this point in time. So I'm not certain what his actual motivations are with respect to these other sectors. The other question remains or the other point to be made is he could have opted out of these anyway with 60 days notice. So the agreement is flexible in that regard to be able to opt out. But I get a chuckle out of some of these people who are phone in and say, we're going to teach him a lesson. We're going to teach him a lesson. What are we going to do? Punch him in the ankles? I mean, he's a giant in terms of the size of their economy. We're a mouse. Those are in Trudeau's father's own words. And or using his analogy, not his own words. But that that's the whole point here. We have to do what Polyev, I think, is attempting to mandate, and that is, let's build our own infrastructure here. Let's put our people to work here in Canada, building that infrastructure. We can stave off the effects of some of these tariffs if they're coming. That way we can diversify ourselves. We can start to diversify our markets. But we've got to repeal Bill 69, which Carney says he's not going to do. And that's a mistake, I think, a huge mistake on Mr. Carney's part. He's setting himself and the country up for failure. He's just another Trudeau. He's Trudeau 2.0.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome, Ken. Good to hear from you today. All right, let's get going with some calls here. Couple of lines available, and I'd love to hear from you on the topic. The day after Liberation Day, we were spared, but the worst of it, we're not getting hit the way China is getting hit, or some of the other countries. But there are still tariffs on some of our industries. Despite signing a free trade agreement with this president 6 years ago, would you do a deal with Donald Trump, and should the next prime minister? To Omar in Ottawa, what would you say, Omar?
Hey, Rob, it goes without saying that we have to do a deal with the states. Obviously, just like Professor Ian said, we're next. The biggest trading partner of any country is the country next door, and we happen to be next to the biggest economy in the world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that goes without saying. The thing is, we can't rely on Donald Trump's signature. He's proven that his signature isn't worth the paper it's written on. He's a known liar, and
right.
he can change his mind at any time. However, the thing is, I wanted to talk about was Trump and these tariffs make no sense. The United States, they don't need the jobs. I don't know if you mentioned it. The U.S. unemployment rate is 4.1%. They don't have the workers. Of all these companies go down to the States, they don't have the workers for these jobs. So what's the game plan here, right?
Okay.
And if you go into Reddit, the thing on Reddit is, well, he's tanking the stock market so his billionaire buddies can buy up the stocks for pennies on the dollar, and they get ultra rich, and everyone else suffers. So everything sounds criminal. Everything he's doing, there's no rhyme or reason. Nobody understands why he's tanking the world economy. That's what I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So look, after April 28th, there's going to be a new prime minister of Canada. Maybe it's Mark Carney. Maybe it's Pierre Poilievre. Do you want that person, sitting down, whatever, in the Oval Office trying to hammer out a deal with Donald Trump?
Well, Rob, we have no choice.
No choice. Like, it's kind of, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You've got to kind of roll that dice, I guess. Okay.
We have to roll the dice, and then the thing we have to do in the intervening years is diversify our investments. Build those. I'm from Ontario, but build those pipelines, build those ports, build those refineries, and let's ship Canadian goods to the world, because it's been proven now we cannot rely on the United States for being a reliable partner, trading partner. We just can't. They've proven it to us. And Trump, he's doing everything he's doing with impunity. The Congress, they don't care. So it's really up to us to be put on our big boy pants and ship our stuff to the world.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Just let me jump in here. A bit of breaking news. It's Freedom Convoy related. Two of the so-called organizers of the Freedom Convoy have been going through this prolonged mischief trial in Ottawa. Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. It's just breaking now that today was verdict day, long delayed. They've been found guilty of mischief. For their roles in the Freedom Convoy. That's all the details that we have right now. But that's the latest breaking news on that. More to come, as they say in the breaking news business. We'll be back right after the news talking about Trump. Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Should the next Canadian Prime Minister try to do a trade deal with Donald Trump? Yes or no? Why not? Christy in Alberta. Thanks for calling, Christy. You're on the air. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we just we go into it with an open mind. We know he's going to change his mind at any moment. We make a deal with him and sit back, but in the meantime, we ensure that we can get our products everywhere else in the world. We make other deals. We stop being so reliant on the United States. Because right now, I think, yes, they're very powerful and they're our neighbor and stuff, but I think we should take the high road. Take the deal, make a deal, and then just sit back and try not to be a target of Donald Trump, because the more he gets angry, he's just going to get angrier.
Okay, but he's proven that he won't live up to the terms of a deal. He's broken his agreement with us. What about that?
Yeah, Yeah,
What
but in
about
the meantime,
once
we can
bitten,
forge new
once
deals.
bitten, twice shy? Once bitten, twice shy. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think we need to diversify. I think we got to get away from this reliance on the United States for all our natural resources and our products and such. We've got to start trading with the world, and the United States is soon going to learn the world is going to pass them by because he's picking off everybody. Yep.
Okay. All right. Christy, thank you for hanging in there. Great to get your opinion today. Really appreciate it. 1-833-668-2577. There's a free line for you. To Luann in Calgary. Hello, Luann.
Well, hi, Rob. So,
Hi.
like a lot of your other callers have said, I think that we are forced to deal with this very unruly person, but I think that we just have to really lower our standards. We have to get better liars. We have to talk to dead people and take their advice. And by God, we have to tax those penguins, Rob. It's brutal.
Tax
what
the
they're doing
penguins,
to the economy.
yeah.
Oh my God, I can't stand the thought of them taking one more thing from us. You know, he's a ridiculous man. He's the epitome of narcissism. So what we need is to have a full head attached and cut the BS, get down to brass tacks. Don't baby him, but also don't make him crazy. And so, you know, when I think about would it be Polyev or will it be Carney, gosh, I wish I could be magical and make one out of two because there's attributes to both of them. You know, it's not a one or the other in my brain, but you know, we're forced to have one or the other. Therefore, I choose Polyev. Polyev.
Oh, why is that?
Well, you know, he's just more of a straight shoot talker, and bullies. That's what Trump is. Handle people that straight talk instead of la la la. And for me personally, Carney is way too much la la la. Oh, let's talk and let's be sweet. To heck with that. As Canadians, we do that way too much. For me, let's get ourselves in order. Let's pick the least amount of lying that we can do, and let's just get in there and get our job done.
All right. Thank you for your call, Luann. Great to hear from you in Calgary today. 1-833-668-2577. Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? What do you think about the next prime minister sitting down, negotiating another free trade deal with Donald Trump? Is that something you would agree with, or would you say, no, he's proven he won't keep his word. He breaks deals. Or would you say, what choice do we have? A lot of callers are saying we don't really have much choice, but we should get our own house in order. In Guelph today, Ontario, Jack. Hi, Jack. You're on the air. What do you think, Jack?
Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jack. Yeah, great to hear from you today.
Yeah, I think we should renegotiate because it's been 6 years now. Things don't stay the same year after year.
Okay.
And,
Good point.
I think Polyev is the person to do that. You got to have a patient person. You got to have a level-headed person. You don't have to be a pushover, but you got to sit down and negotiate no matter what happens.
Okay, well, what about Mark Carney and all of his experience? You know, he's worked on Wall Street,
the thing is,
governed two central banks. You know, knows all the players.
Yeah, he's got experience in the financial aspect of it, but politically, I think he lacks a bit there. But what happened yesterday when it came to Trump's reciprocal tariffs on Canada and Mexico, that didn't come into effect. So that took the wind out of the sails of the Liberals. Because,
oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah, because what happened was they were campaigning on that issue. Not so much Polyev was campaigning on it. He was basically looking at the issues in the last 9 to 10 years. And that seemed to have gone away on the Liberal campaign. And people don't forget what happened in the last 9 to 10 years. And it's affected the country. The main thing that affected the country was the immigration. That affected everything when it came to pricing, when it came to housing, our food, and everything else all the way down the line.
Okay, all right. So you think we should strike a deal, and you think Polyev is the person to do it?
Well, like I said, things don't stay the same year after year. Like,
Yeah.
things keep changing in there, especially with technology today.
Right.
Things keep changing from year to year. So, we should sit down and renegotiate, and basically probably the tariffs will go away when you renegotiate the deal.
Okay. Thank you. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, take care.
We'll stop here. We'll stop here and be back with more of your phone calls. So talk back on a Thursday. Trying to do a deal with Donald Trump. Sarah in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Sarah. Hi there.
Hi, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Sarah. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. I think we need to diversify and stay alert, but also be open to negotiate. Life is never really black or white, and we don't know what's going to happen. So to say no, we're not interested right now just seems kind of foolhardy. My view is come to the table in good faith, but still find different avenues to kind of get our products to the market at this point. I actually called because one of your previous callers mentioned that Carney won't repeal Bill C-69 and called it a pipeline ban, which I've been seeing kind of all over the internet. I followed
no
Danielle
pipelines
Smith
bill.
on
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
it's
pipelines
not a
bill.
no
Yeah.
pipelines bill, though.
What is it then?
Several pipelines have been made and announced, including LNG, the Coastal GasLink, Pacific Trail, Yellowhead Mainline. All of these have been made and announced since Bill C-69 came about. So what it really does is it prevents oil wells and from being abandoned and protects the environment. So I think as Canadians, it's important to be educating ourselves instead of blindly trusting information that's being fed to us and then just repeating it as fact. And that's kind of what I've seen. Why I would personally am leaning more towards Carney, because Poilievre is just a lot of talk and hasn't really said anything about his policies or plans for Canada, other than just a lot of misinformation, disinformation. That's kind of disappointing to see in a federal campaign.
What would you say is, you've mentioned C-69. You think that's misinformation, disinformation? What would be another example, do you think, of that?
Pardon me?
What would be another example of something that you think is misinformation or disinformation from Mr. Poilievre? Not that I want to get too off track here. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think there's been just a lot of it right now online that it's kind of hard to keep up.
Online, yeah.
So I think, I can't at this moment. I'm a little nervous.
Okay.
I've never called.
That's okay. That's okay.
Before.
No, I'm glad you called. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. No. It wasn't my intention to, corner you on something and slam you or whatever. Right. Yeah. I'm not like that. But
party, right? Just stay critical and kind of do your homework.
Sure. That's why we say around here, critical thinking is not dead. That's one of the lines we use on our show, Sarah. Okay. Thank you for your call. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Bye. Yeah. I appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. I think it's Morgan is up next. Hi, Morgan.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm good, Morgan. How are you doing?
Oh, just amazing.
I'm glad to hear that.
I really like this show. Listen to a fair bit. First time caller.
Appreciate that.
My thoughts, my thoughts of the matter are, automatically where was all this Canadian pride when Quebec told us there's no social appetite for an energy corridor.
Right.
We tried to go out east. We're not able to do that. I think there have been thoughts of going even over to Hudson's Bay. I don't think Winnipeg or Manitoba was too stoked about that. So there was this, Trudeau even called us the first post-national state. And, to me, a little bit later, Trump comes and says, well, you should be the 51st state. And everyone's like, whoa, we're Canada. Well, I mean, a post-national state is not exactly something you can be proud of. It's nothing. It's, it's just there. So, when it comes
post-national state with no core identity, a post-national state with no core identity, that's not misinformation or disinformation. He said that to the New York Times. It was in the New York Times.
Thank you.
All the news that's fit to print.
Clarifying that one. I've said it a few times, and I just said, hey, how does that give us any pride? And all of a sudden, oh no, we're Canada. So it's like, I think we got to.
Why do you think that's happened? I'm just curious. Why do you think that's happened? Do you think, because we talked about this last week, do you think it's being torqued for an election campaign? Because it's beneficial to whip people up into this kind of nationalistic anti-Trump frenzy because it distracts from what is a less than ideal 9.5-year record in government.
Well, you're 100% right there. And if you look at what they're nationalistic now, right wing is usually the nationalistic ones, There is just one, I'll end with this one, and it is a question for you and all of the other callers, is I saw a graph showing tariffs from all of these countries, currency manipulation and tariffs and cheating, and that's definitely China. I don't hear anyone even talking about whether or not that's accurate. And if it were inaccurate, I would think everybody would jump on it and say, no, there's not 60% tariffs from Korea. No, there's not this, there's not that. Canada does have a dairy cartel. I believe that's fact. And when I was younger, we drove over the border to get milk and cheese. So are these tariffs, reciprocal? Were they existing in the first place? And I mean, I haven't heard anything to say that they weren't. So I wonder about that a fair bit. I'm not saying one way or another, but I'm just saying nobody seems to really be talking about is this a total lie? And the guy's a liar a lot of the time.
Let me ask you this, because I want to come back to the core question so we don't wander off too far.
Yes, sir.
I'll give people some latitude today. Should we try and do a deal with Trump or not? Just given his record?
I think Well, given his record, I think because we've been saying we're going to increase our military, we finally are. I think there is a deal to be made. I've been reading a lot about a lot more drug busts at our borders, and that's only recently. And I'm not sure if it's more or less, but it seems to be I'm reading a lot more. And that's since he started telling us our border sucks. So pull there, and yes, negotiate.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, great call, Morgan. I hope you'll call back sometime. Really enjoyed the discussion with you today. Let's go to Sean in Halifax. Sean, would you do a deal with Donald Trump if you were the prime minister? What should the next prime minister do, Sean?
I'm sorry.
Hello, Sean.
Yeah,
Hi, Sean.
Hello.
Hi.
I would definitely make a deal, sit down at the table. But I think we got to look at first is like we're blaming Trump that he's going against all the deals and he's broken the deal already. But I've heard Trump state numerous of times at press conferences, rallies, podcasts, that the Biden administration actually has butchered that trade deal in the past 4 years when Trump's been gone. So I think we have to look in to see if that's the case, then we can't blame him for destroying the deal that he signed, and then sit down, make a new deal, and put some clauses in it that benefit Canada.
Okay. Now, ahead of this deal yesterday, this event that he had yesterday, Liberation Day, there was a report from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative that listed here are all the grievances that we have with all of these countries, and there's a whole section there on Canada. It's not very long. It's like 2-3 pages. All you have to do is read that. You know what they're upset about. One of them is supply management in agriculture, right? Dairy, poultry,
again brought
eggs.
in with the Biden administration.
Well, no, supply management in Canada has been around for like 60 plus years in Canada,
I just
right?
mean I just mean like there was some changes made during the Biden administration to these terms.
But it's been a long-held complaint under Democratic presidents and Republican presidents. They don't like supply management. They want us to get rid of it. They want their farmers to be able to sell more of their stuff here. Okay.
And
the other one is digital. The other big one is digital services. They don't like that we have a digital services tax, for example, on the big streaming companies.
And I can't fault him for that, Rob. I mean, if you're in his position and say you're watching Canadians building in our car plants and stuff and then charging 25% tariffs coming into the States, when he could just take that factory and put it in the States. So if he's got where's the fairness for him if his dairy is not allowed to be sold on our shelves, but our cars are what people are saying should be sold in his sales with no tariffs, no nothing. I think there's some validity there, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. I think you're trying to say we have to understand their grievances, right? And I'm saying,
because if we look
just
at
read that report.
Detroit,
It lists all the grievances. Yeah.
Like if we look at Detroit was the automaker of history, right? We all have cars, we think of Detroit, right? So we can look at that and say, okay, the Americans, that's their bread and butter is exporting vehicles. And ours happens to be poultry, dairy. So he's protecting his industry by putting tariffs on vehicles coming in, but we're not allowed to do the same.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like
yeah.
he's
Okay.
protecting his
Sit down and
industry
negotiate. Okay. Sit down and negotiate. They're playing the music. They're going to haul us off the stage here. So we got to run. Thank you, though, Sean. Thank you.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Would you do a deal with Donald Trump? Should the next Canadian Prime Minister try and do a deal with Donald Trump? Would you say, no, he hasn't lived up to the current deal? That would be nice. Or the United States is the biggest economy in the world, and it's right next door. 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of a U.S. border crossing. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. And thanks for calling Peter in Langley. You're up today, Peter. Go ahead.
Morning. Afternoon.
Hi, Peter.
I would do a deal with the USA, not Trump. And what I mean by that is that Trump is unpredictable. He hasn't lived up to past deals. And he invents things like fentanyl to break deals, to break the past deal and what have you. So what I'm saying is that we should only do a deal if there's some kind of guarantee that it's not going to be broken. And I don't know if that's possible or not. If we can't get some kind of guarantees, maybe they pay penalties if, for one party breaking it. I don't know. But if we can't do some kind of deal, then I would suggest that Canada withdraw military cooperation and other agreements that are not in our interest. Like, for instance, cross-border police training, the extradition treaty. I would even go as far as Five Eyes and NORAD and the rest of it.
Really? You'd break off all of those ties.
I would break off all of those ones, one at a time.
Wow.
And I think that would be more pressure than putting on, tariffs on goods. Because, for instance, if you came up and you threatened, like, first of all, Carney has threatened, not promised, that he would cancel the F-35 deal. And we noticed that the next day Trump quietened down. He toned things down as far as Canada goes. And so I think that the Americans, they value the Five Eyes and the cooperation over our northern territories and what have you more than they value any kind of our
but they also think we haven't been pulling our weight,
And we haven't, and I think, we should be building our own radar system. We should build it, we should pay for it, own it, operate it, and pass on information to us, pass on information to them. And I think that we should, we don't have a whole lot of threats. The only threat that we face, really, I don't even think that we face Russia as a threat. The biggest threat that's going on right now is the Americans are trying to redraw the border in the Beaufort Sea, and they're trying to take more of our territory up there. I don't know if anybody knows that or not. And also, they don't agree with the Northwest Passage, that Canada owns the Northwest Passage. They want it, open so that they can travel back and forth at their will. I think what this is going to come down to is quotas. I think after all this shakes out, the Americans are going to say, well, this country can have this much of our market, this country can have that much of our market. I think that's what it's going to come down to.
All right. That's really interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I got to move along, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Peter would cite 9 more things if I let him. Jim in Calgary. Hi, Jim. You're up next, Jim.
Yes, I absolutely believe we should be negotiating a deal. If you're not on speaking terms, there'll never be a solution. Moreover, we don't want to antagonize him further and push him into a corner, considering he has not been as hard on Canada as we thought. Any deal is better than no deal, considering that we have no control over whether he honors the deal or not. The second thing I just want to say, and I want to make it quick, is I am very disappointed in you when you agreed with those two panelists that the Green Party should not be included in the debate. You're a journalist.
Should they be?
You should not be injecting your bias into your conversations.
I'm not a journalist, sir. I'm a broadcaster, and I'm paid to give my opinion.
Well, that's up to you. But after all, it's a debate.
No, it's not up to me. That's my job description. It's my job description, sir.
Oh, okay, all right, no problem. I
All
agree
right.
with that.
All right.
Then.
Like know how in a newspaper, just pardon me. You know how in a newspaper there are news reporters, right? And they report the facts, right? And then there are columnists in the newspapers. And what do? They offer their opinion. Well, in broadcasting, I'm more of the columnist than the news reporter.
But I just want to mention that after all, it's a debate. That if the Green Party puts forth some ideas that others might not be thinking about, what is wrong with it? Right?
I just don't think I don't think they garner enough support in the country that they deserve to be in a debate. Do you think the PPC should be in the debate, the People's Party?
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not. And yet the People's Party got twice as many votes as the Green Party in the last election. And yet you would exclude the People's Party and welcome the Greens.
Well, it's just sort of a rule that we have been used to. Maybe why not have all the parties? They may have.
Yeah, well,
ideas.
I think we should have. I think there should be more than two debates.
Yeah. Well,
I think there should be all kinds of debates hosted by all kinds of news organizations or special interest. I don't know why we only have two debates. I think there should be way more debates than just two debates.
I think so, too. I think so, not just limiting to the number of debates here. But just wanted to say that, Rob, and thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. And I just want you to understand what my role is, okay? I'm supposed to offer an opinion.
You're more in a columnist kind of role than just, a regular reporter. So you made a good point. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Jim. I'm just glad we could clear that up, sir. We can disagree without being disagreeable, Jim. Thank you for your call. We'll be right back with more of your calls. Jody up next out in Calgary. Hi, Jody.
Hey, Rob. I loved your answer to that last caller. That was an excellent answer. I mean,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, the Green Party should have no business being in a debate whatsoever. I mean, anyway. But yeah, great answer, and and that's not your job. But to make it like plain and sweet here, like what the media should do in Canada is basically get a hold of Klaus Schwab, because he's running the show. So get a hold of him, and but I still say that that we definitely need to make a deal. I mean, we have to
make a deal. Okay.
Yeah,
why do we have to? Why do we have to?
The United States is the biggest.
And why would we like? I mean, look, let's think about this in real life. Like, if you signed a deal with somebody and they screwed you over, would you go back and sign a deal again with that person?
Well, I mean, it's a hard one because. Like the United States, like I said, like they're the biggest economy in the world. I mean, like, it's not as if we have a choice. I mean, like, we can make some other like arrangements, but we have to do something. I mean, if we lose them, we're in bad shape.
Yeah, bad shape. Yeah. True enough. So, okay, thank you, Jody.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, bud. Yeah, bye-bye. Tom is up in Kitchener today. Hi, Tom.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. What do you think, Tom?
Both the federals and the provincial premiers, everybody is all screwed up because they don't get it, or they're stupid. They don't understand.
What are they not getting or understanding?
The country. This is what his aim is. We haven't seen anything yet. Now, the first sign that things aren't going well is Danielle Smith when she went to Florida. She's probably making deals underneath.
Well, Justin Trudeau went to Florida.
The unit is.
Dominic LeBlanc went to Florida. Yeah.
Pardon?
I said Justin Trudeau went to Florida. Dominic LeBlanc went to Florida. He was there having dinner with Donald Trump. Right?
Yeah, this is what they're working on. First, you're going to see Alberta's going to go. Everybody thinks that Quebec is going to separate Alberta, then they're going to take the other, Saskatchewan and the other. This is how it's going to work.
Okay.
We haven't seen any plans yet. But I mean, they're not. You should go to China, kiss their legs, the ground they walk, and make a deal to buy our stuff. Because we've been waiting for the commies to come to this country, and who's coming? It's the United States.
Okay. All right, Tom. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Hakeem, out in Calgary. Thank you for calling, Hakeem. You're on the air. What do you think, Hakeem?
Hi there. What I'm thinking is, I see it in different angle, to be honest with you. This is a huge opportunity for us as a Canadian to be so independent from this, from United States. But, I'm talking about the economy. This is a huge opportunity. Why we don't want to just start making everything in here? Like, especially we buy a lot of cars, a lot of trucks from United States. Let's build our cars and our trucks here. Let's build a pipeline going from east to west. And to be honest with you, Rob, I'll be honest. Like, I blame the federal government for this mess, because Trudeau, he worked with Trump, if you remember. He worked with Trump before. He knows his mentality and everything. Why the last minute he was calling all the provinces and all the territories like, oh man, we are in danger. You guys can come.
I know.
Come on here.
Okay, but let me ask you. Just on vehicles, if I could just interrupt. Vehicles is kind of a focus today. Vehicles with the counter tariffs and you have Poilievre saying, "I'll take the GST off a car that's made in Canada." 85% of the vehicles that are rolling off lines at all of these factories that we have in Canada, Stellantis and Ford and General Motors and Toyota and Honda, 85% of those go to the United States. 85% of them. Only 15% actually stay here in Canada, right?
Yeah, because they have a
So what are we going to do with all those cars?
Well, all those cars, well, it's all up to Carney. He has a PhD on economy and stuff like that. To me, is we're gonna use all the tools to protect our workers and to protect our economy. And this is a huge opportunity. Like I said, we have to build our brand. We have to build. You know what? We don't wanna buy Ford. We don't wanna buy Chrysler anymore. We have to make our own. For how long we've been existed now, and we don't have our brand new.
Well, we've tried a few times.
You know what I'm saying?
We've tried a few times. Do you think it's possible from? I hear people saying this, like this is Jagmeet Singh's idea. Headlight to tail light will have a made in Canada car.
Yeah.
Made in Canada car. I don't know. Did you ever drive any of those? Listen, did you ever drive any of those cars from the Soviet Union? Made by the Soviet Union? Do you ever drive a Lada? You ever drive a Lada?
I know. I know those cars, to be honest with you. I know those cars. But guess, you know what? How many jobs are we going to create by making our own cars? How many jobs? Tell me, how many jobs? We can have strong economy by just making our trucks and our buses and our cars.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Know.
All right. Yeah. Well, they do make buses. I mean, New Flyer, very, very successful company in Winnipeg making public transit buses. So maybe we can do it with cars. I don't know. John in Calgary. Thanks for waiting. John, you're up next. Hi there, John.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Great to hear from you, John. Go ahead. What do you think?
Go ahead. Listen, anybody but Mark Carney, I wouldn't have a problem, making a deal with Trump. Because you got to remember one thing: Trump has businesses in Canada. He has 2 or 3 different outfits here. He has done well. The guy has done well because he knows what he's doing. And I believe in all my heart that he is starting to smarten up Canada. Because if we hold the liberal way, we're all going to be in a green tag system within the next 4 years. We don't want that. Our grandchildren don't want that.
We're going to be in a what? Sorry, I missed what you said. We're going to be in a what?
Having green tags to get food. Having to report to where we want to go. We'll be shut down in our houses. We'll be happy, but we won't own anything.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, John, I don't know what's going on with your phone if you've got something on in the background there. I mean, but John says, well, he's been a great business person. I mean, he is. The Forbes list just came out. I mean, he's been very successful. He's made it to the Forbes list of billionaires. I'm not on that list. David, did you make the Forbes list this year? Just missed out just by that much.
It was really close this year, though.
Touch and go there.
No, it was closer than it's next year for sure. I'm feeling really good about next year. But not this.
Like Trump made it. He's on the list. 4.6 billion. So he's on the list. He's done well. I guess what I come back to is we signed this deal with him 6 years ago. He seemed happy at the time, and now he says countries. I mean, you listen to the speech yesterday. It's like they've been, the United States has been raped and pillaged and brutalized. Ripped off. Those are the words: raped, pillaged, and brutalized. And he's not honoring the last agreement. So I'm surprised by the number of people who are saying, well, let's sign another deal. When you look at his record in business, I mean, checkered, I would say, is how I would describe. He's had businesses that have failed: the Taj Mahal, Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, Plaza Hotel. Everything went belly up in 91. I remember when that happened because I was in university and he was all over the place. He was like a pop culture phenomenon, Dave. Donald Trump, right? And then it all kind of went sour. 1991, and then 2004. Trump hotels and casino resorts goes bust in 2004. Trump Shuttle defaulted on loans in 1990. Trump University.
I forgot about the university.
Trump University. Yeah. Ceased. Where did you go to school? Trump University ceased operations in 2011. Lots of lawsuits about Trump University. Yeah, he signed up for Trump University and it was terrible, right? Trump Vodka, Trump Mortgage, GoTrump.com. That was a travel agency. GoTrump.com. Trump Steaks. All of these failing businesses. Not all of them went bankrupt. Some of them just ceased operations. But as I say, many successes as well. $4.6 billion, and Forbes is saying most of his money comes from real estate holdings, golf courses, and a winery. So, I mean, he's done well. He's had spectacular failures, but he's the kind of person that you would just shake his hand and do a deal with him. I mean, Poilievre is saying, we'll make a deal, but some things are non-negotiable, like supply management, non-negotiable. Mark Carney has said, we'll have negotiations after the election. And he has also said supply management, non-negotiable. Things about culture, like Bill 96 in Quebec. That's the language law that was cited in the trade report. Culture is also streaming services, the tax on the streaming services, because the Liberal government wants you to watch Canadian content, right? So tax the big American streaming giants and promote Canadian content. But just given our recent history with the Trump administration, he signed USMCA, or what we call CUSMA, said it was a great deal. And 6 years later, here he is. It's tariffs on all kinds of industries: steel, aluminum, automobiles, auto parts, potash, energy. Do you really sign another deal with this guy? Maybe the answer is yes, because we need them. It's the biggest, most advanced, most consumer-oriented economy in the world, and we have 90% of our population lives within 100 miles of the border. $27 trillion economy. And before all this chaos, we were doing $3.5 billion worth of two-way trade every day. Can you really replace something like that? Herman in Calgary. Thanks for waiting, Herman. You're up next, Herman.
Thanks a lot for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just recently discovered your radio show. I used to listen to your competitor on a talk radio program, but they replaced the gentleman who was doing his show with the son of a former prime minister, whom I absolutely detest. And then I started surfing and found you. So anyway.
All right. Well, welcome to it, sir.
Thank you.
However you got here, I'm glad you're here.
Okay. Look, do we have to do a deal with Trump? Sadly, yes. However, I think what we should be looking forward to is not what we're doing as a trade deal with the United States, but to reorientate and go more international. The idea that, okay, we're going to do a trade deal with you, but our goal now is to stop producing or supplying the United States with as much as we have and start looking towards the other markets, because we have the last 35 years, we've shifted more and more towards becoming dependent on the American market. The last time we had a conservative prime minister who was, I'm going to say, anti-American was Diefenbaker, right?
Before my time.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was before my time. I mean, he was still alive and an MP when I was a kid, but he was the last truly not real pro-American. He was very much into being involved with not just the United States, but with Europe and with the rest of the world. Then we had Trudeau being a liberal. He made a lot of enemies in Western Canada. But we need, the liberal mentality has always been supposedly to go more international. Even Chrétien and Martin were looking at opening up markets in the United States. We had Mulroney, who turned around and cozied up with the Americans and came up with the free trade deal, which was beneficial to Canada. But the trade-off to that was in through the back door came the GST. We had Harper, who was also very.
Well, you think the GST was? Do you think the GST was a bad policy?
I don't think it was a bad policy
because it replaced a manufacturer's. It replaced a manufacturer's tax that was hard on industry, right? A lot of people forget that.
But the election issue was more about free trade, and that came in through the back door. It was not something that was advertised that this was.
Well, it also went a long way, and we'll have to wrap things up, and we're kind of wandering off. And but it also helped you, and I'm sure you know this. It helped Mr. Chrétien and Mr. Martin do the heavy lifting when they were trying to balance the budget in the mid-90s. They couldn't have done it without the GST and the revenue that came in from the GST. I mean, there's a reason Chrétien kept it. When he ran an entire election in 1993, saying it was the first thing he would do would be to get rid of it. All right, Robert, I got to wrap it up. I'm glad you found us. You call back anytime.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Trump, tariffs, Liberation Day, our election. We've been asking, what about signing a new deal? The Trump administration is not living up to USMCA or CUSMA as it stands. Should we really even be sitting down and negotiating with an administration that won't honor an agreement in the first place? So let's remind you what's been said today about this. Very heavy on counter tariffs for the auto sector, because there are tariffs on autos and auto parts. There's also tariffs on steel and aluminum and potash and energy, but there's like this singular focus. We must retaliate about tariffs in the auto sector. It is our second biggest export behind oil from Alberta. But this was the Prime Minister, Mark Carney. He said these measures from Trump will rupture the global economy.
The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over.
Economy is fundamentally different, and the system that has helped deliver prosperity for our country for our decades is over. And when it comes to just specifically tariffs in autos, Carney said his plan is to match the U.S.
with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement. and on the non-Canadian content of CUSMA-compliant vehicles from the United States as well. Our tariffs, though, unlike the U.S. tariffs, will not affect auto parts because we know the benefits of our integrated production system. And they will also not affect vehicle content from Mexico, who is respecting the CUSMA agreement. And as well, we are developing a framework for auto producers in Canada to get relief from these counter tariffs as long as they maintain their production and investment in our country.
Okay. So, as I said, very focused on autos, almost singularly focused on autos today from Mark Carney, Liberal leader, Prime Minister. Also in Ottawa today, the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, was asked about these retaliatory tariffs in the auto sector because the auto industry has said, we don't want you to do that, but they're doing it anyway. And he was also asked, does Mark Carney deserve any credit? You know, we're not getting hit as bad as some other countries are getting hit when it comes to these Liberation Day retaliatory tariffs. Does Mark Carney get credit for that because of the phone call he had? Let's listen to this.
I've long maintained the position that we need to retaliate dollar for dollar. If we're being attacked, we need to fight back. We also know that these tariffs are going to hurt Americans, and we've said that from the beginning. We're already seeing that Donald Trump's approach is like an arsonist who's setting fire not to just our economy, but his own economy as well. But we need to show that we're ready to fight back and defend our country.
And just as a follow-up, do you think that Mark Carney deserves any credit for Canada being exempt from the 10% baseline tariff that Trump announced yesterday?
I don't think there's anything that Mark Carney did specifically to result in that. But again, when it comes to our fight against Donald Trump, I'm on Team Canada. I want us to win. I want us to do well. And I think that we're up against a very volatile, unpredictable Donald Trump. And I don't know if there's anything that we've done that has caused this outcome. But we got to stay strong and fight back.
And this was Pierre Poilievre at a news event. He was at a factory in Kingston.
It's clear that tariffs must end. It's clear that Canadians must stand together. And I'm here to reassure Canadians that united we will get through this together. We will strengthen our country and stand up for our workers. First and foremost, we must support workers and their families. So to the hardworking Canadians and businesses directly hit by these unjustified tariffs, I say your concerns are my concern today. We are here for you.
And
a new Conservative government will make it.
Then he announced a plan. If you buy a made in Canada car, and there's a list of eligible vehicles, the RAV4, the Civic, the CRV, the Silverado, save the GST. Save the GST. That was his big announcement today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, winding down Talkback here on a Thursday. David, you know what a popular Google search these days is anyway? Even before, say, this announcement about auto sector retaliatory tariffs or save the GST, the political machinations of the Trump tariffs. What cars are made in Canada?
Yeah.
What cars are made in Canada? Have you done that Google search?
Oh, yeah.
You know, what?
Yeah.
Oh, you have, eh? Yeah.
I was looking at that just this morning because...
Were you really? Yeah.
Well, so because Pierre Poilievre has announced he's taking the GST, if he wins, he'll take the GST off of made-in-Canada cars to make them cheaper. Yeah. And I was thinking, okay, that sounds great because Carney has just announced tariffs on import cars, so that's going to make them more expensive. There's not that many of them.
No, Toyota, but some of them are very popular, though. Toyota RAV4,
You're right.
Toyota RAV4,
Yep.
Ford Edge,
Yep.
Chevy Equinox,
Yep.
Lexus RX, a little out of my price range,
Yep, me too.
Dodge Charger, nice car, not very practical.
No.
Honda CRV, very popular, right? The Honda CRV.
Yeah.
The Lincoln Nautilus, very nice, but a little out of my budget realm
It's
for
a
Lincoln.
flashy.
Don't
a little
see
flashy
myself
for me. Yeah,
I like Lincolns are nice. The Chrysler Grand Caravan, Dave, classic people mover.
Very
Chrysler
classic.
Grand Caravan.
Sat in a lot of those on the way to hockey practice as a
The
kid.
Pacifica. I have
those are
friends
nice.
of our family in Prince Edward Island own a Pacifica. I'll tell you what, like I'm not a big minivan guy, but those are nice.
They're
those
quite
Chrysler Pacificas. The Civic, like the Honda Civic. What else here? Oh, the Silverado, Chevy Silverado.
Now, a point about the Silverado. Canadians love trucks. Canadians buy a lot of pickup trucks.
Yeah, buy a lot of trucks. Yeah.
That's the only one that's made in Canada. Every other half ton on the market is an import.
Yeah, I quite like the Chevy Silverado.
My dad always had.
Not that I'm in the market, but if I was looking for a new vehicle and wanted to buy Canadian, do my thing for the country, I might go with the Silverado.
The thing, my experience with truck guys,
my wife would not approve
of the Silverado.
Yeah,
but I find truck guys are so brand loyal. Like you're gonna have competing interests. You want to buy a Canadian, but can you switch your truck brand? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. True enough, Dave. Yeah. Guts Glory Ram. I miss my Ram, but
do you though? Because I recall you complaining constantly about that car when you had it.
No, it was one of the best vehicles I ever owned. What I was complaining about was the $2 a liter it cost to fill it up.
That's true. It's a lot of fuel economy related griping.
Yeah, it was fuel economy. It was all fuel economy related. David will be guiding the ship tomorrow on Talkback. It's the Friday free for all tomorrow. Always a lot of fun, and we'll always have the latest breaking news. Coming up next here on News Radio.